Sure.
All right.
It's time for Perf Bites.
What the is Perf Bites? The fourth square meal.
So we just give you
Don't bogart the Perf Bites.
Microwave ready.
Add nutritional value to your brain. It's time for Perf Bites with your hosts Mark Tomlinson, James Pulley, and Howard Chorney.
Perf Bites.
Whatever.
Hey,
Mark.
we are back. Even though there was an audio problem there, we're on break one, just into the break one with my good friend James Pulley introducing the person we've known forever but never met in person, Brian Brumfield.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
Welcome to Perf Bites.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've listened to the show.
I have.
Yes, and of course this is a do-over. So.
Any comments on the show?
I haven't listened a lot, but
That's a very polite way of saying, yeah, right. Yeah.
No, I'm just too stinking busy. This is the busiest I've ever been. So,
Yeah.
But what I did here, I really liked. I appreciate you guys, and I think people are wise to listen to you. So,
Wise to what? What makes them wise? You should listen to guys who all used to work at Mercury so many years ago.
Yeah.
Mercury Interactive. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah, that's true.
Before the name change.
That's right.
Yeah.
Back when it had the star and the logo.
Yeah. So yes, not to sound off color, but you have been around like we've been around. Lots of different companies.
Yeah.
Between Sosta and then brought you in to Keynote, and now you're here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's an illusion. These companies that we've all been with, it's an illusion because as an industry, it's sort of familial. And like you said, we've known each other vicariously or, through LinkedIn or whatever mechanism, through
X-ray
common
forums.
acquaintances, through contracting gigs that we've never, seen each other in person before.
Oh, I saw these scripts. That looks like, I bet Brian wrote these. I've seen that comment before. He uses these same variables all the same. I've seen that.
so
You go to,
whatever,
look,
BSD.
Yeah.
who
Who
wrote
is it
this?
that uses
Oh,
the burger references as for variable names?
Yeah, there you go. Oh, I said, yeah. Is this Dan Downing wrote this, didn't he? Yeah, right, exactly. Crazy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So very cool. So what brought in Keynotes merging in? I asked before. Well, how did that all work out? And is that still growing, or you kind of moved on from the Keynote world? You're still doing the load testing internally, or
Yeah.
Or
So I'm the practice manager for the load testing practice for Dynatrace,
Right.
which is blended from the Keynote family. So Keynote had legacy testing tools. So they
Right.
had Load Pro, which was a cloud-based,
Yeah.
highly scalable performance testing product. They had a synthetic-based tool called Test Perspective. It was based off of Keynote's synthetic monitoring tool.
Yep.
Dynatrace also had Gomez and Web Load Test, which was based on their synthetics. But we basically, in the merger, kind of come up with a strategy that's more future-proofed, if you will. So we're going with a new architecture that's cloud-based, highly scalable.
Yeah.
And so as part of the process of merging the two companies, merging the two teams, merging all these technologies, it's been a very busy year.
Yeah.
So I've been, like I said, the busiest I've ever been.
So Mark and I have had the discussion on the Gomez versus Keynote and
Yeah.
similar challenges Rational had in bringing together multiple tool sets years ago into one cohesive offering.
Right.
Is there anything that you can share for the Gomez and the Keynote families that
How to make
as
sense of
this
that, yeah.
gets merged together, what that end result looks like? Are we going to orphan one? Are we going to migrate
Right.
both?
Yeah, and that's always a challenge, right? You take kind of like the best of breed of both worlds and try to Frankenstein some solution together that makes no one happy, except marketing or whatever.
Yeah.
And what we decided to do was actually, from the load testing side, was, I don't want to say abandon, that's too strong a word, but we are end-of-lifing the respective product lines and coming up with a new product. So we've been selling that, Dynatrace Load, and we are bringing in features from the Load Pro side. Load Pro was really the scalable solution.
Right.
The web load test, you could go up to a few thousand users, but it ran in real browsers, so it wasn't very scalable.
Yeah.
We can run millions of virtual users with the new platform.
Right.
So there is a transition, and people will have to, get used to that.
Yeah.
Different recorder, different environment to work in. It's actually JMeter under the covers, which I find to be way easier than Cloud Test was. I find it to be easier than Load Runner.
Yeah.
You don't have to know C language. You don't have to, some arcane vendor script or something like that.
Sure.
But on the synthetic side, it's migrating more toward the Dynatrace solution. I think they had, more, at least for for end user monitoring.
Yeah.
They had the more mature solution.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of
So it's kind of the Gomez points of presence for end user monitoring and that technology stack.
And that probably, I'm guessing, that's where you do want the full browser rendering, so you get the full experience.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It's and we're working with customers to blend solutions. So if they still want to maintain the what they called last mile and backbone in the Dynatrace world, with performance testing, we're blending that together. We've obviously got the mobile device component, so we can thread that in if we want to. So there's a lot of solutions, and the nice thing now with Dynatrace is we have really the full end-to-end quote 360
right
perspective. We've got the APM solution, we've got the load test generation that integrates with it, we've got mobile devices, we've got EUM, we've got what brought me here. So
I think you've got a demo here on the show floor to kind of highlight all this integration.
To a degree. To a degree. It's actually
the UM stuff is in there for sure.
Well, we put together a live performance test with the NOC over here.
And your performance test in Google, right?
Yeah. No. Actually, the Dynatrace APM University. But you can press a button that says launch test. It'll actually kick off a performance test in the background. You can watch the infrastructure scale to meet the need.
That's really cool.
It's pretty cool.
We're a fan of live load testing, particularly at shows. The one thing we don't want to do is live load test our Spreaker app, because that seems to be misbehaving itself. Regardless of the size of the team, I mean, you're hands-on with customers. I mean, the actual practice itself is part of the services division,
right? And
getting out there and doing stuff. It's booming holiday season. Are there any interesting learnings you've got from people who are running into weird stuff this year?
I posted a blog earlier this week that pretty much said you need to be contacting your provider, such as Dynatrace, if you have any chance at getting a live production test before the holidays at this point.
The lessons for this season are yet to be learned, I think. We're still seeing the ramp up. We're still seeing new customers trickling in, and we're doing conversions from those product migrations we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And so I am personally somewhat in survival mode at the moment, but my team is handling it. So we've got a distributed global team. We've got, like I said, European presence, India, the domestic United States as well. Yep. But I think it's going to be an interesting year for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of old habits die hard, I guess.
Really?
With customers.
Okay.
So
a little late in the game for getting load run, or
late in the game, ignoring reality, and that's really my track here is talking about 360 and not ignoring your analytical data, right? You're actually using it, not getting. Originally, this talk was going to be called something like "Don't play chicken with your holiday data," and I was going to use a crossy road metaphor, but that all got scrapped because that would have been too geeky, I guess.
What is too geeky? It's never too geeky for us.
Yeah, crossy road, have a little chicken jump across. But
nothing wrong with that.
And James and I were talking about a previous customer that I was at, and they were notorious for ignoring reality.
I believe their perspective is we're going to offer more in-store sales to get people off the website.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do more promotions and brick and mortar.
I think that is unrealistic.
In 2000,
people will just go to another website.
Yeah, that's true.
In 2014, part and parcel with the too late in the game, not enough testing early, in 2014 we really called it Cyber Week. It wasn't a single day. It was like, we're going to start spreading this out because we know if we do, the biggest promotion, the biggest inventories on that one day, it's just going to obliterate that. So move to brick and mortar. What are some of the other old habits dying hard? Right,
testing what they think is important based on some perception that isn't based in reality.
An interpretation of what the business
versus looking at what Dynatrace is providing to say, here's what is actually occurring, and this is what you should be testing.
Right, or other tools. They've got a lot of investment in analytic tools.
I'm a big Splunk guy. Splunk is here. I like to use their log analysis tools to get that objective perspective.
Yeah. So one of the classic examples was a project I ran into where this guy had modeled out in Excel exactly what a test should do.
Yeah.
And so he had figured out all the transaction rates, and he'd figured out what the end results should be. And they would run a test, and if the test results didn't match what was in the spreadsheet, he threw them out as bad.
Yeah. So you got to get your mix right.
So I'm more of a pragmatic guy.
Do you remember Terry Calderoni? Used to be with Oracy.
No.
Just certain in terms of circles and stuff. One of the few great women in performance.
Okay.
She just recently at STPCon gave a presentation on her usage modeling, workload modeling that she'd done at the company right down the road here in Orlando.
Yep.
But really nice UCML diagrams that were derived from a similar spreadsheet exercise. Like we had done manually as engineers, the three of us, over all these years. It's finally getting a lot easier to do that from the usage perspective. I'm wondering if we don't see from Dynatrace the equivalent of that analytic flow coming. That's part of the UEM. Am I saying that right? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
End user monitor. Yeah.
End user monitor. Sorry.
There's going to be a shift, I think, in the next year. It's going to take a little time, but where we're moving is to unify a lot of this data. The data that we're collecting, because there's such a rich amount of it, from real users to the synthetics and the load testing, and trying to thread it all together. And at the end of the day, we're all testing and looking at the same things. Yeah. We're basing our judgments and our assessments off of similar data, right? KPIs, if you will.
Yep.
Are they good? Are they bad? What's the user experience? And so while we see a divergence in dashboarding and things like that from the past, that will be unified, and we are going to have, when you look at synthetic data, you're going to have graphing and reporting and data viz. It's going to be very, very similar to what you're going to see in the load testing side as well. So it's definitely going to unify and sort of normalize, if you will.
And maybe easier to collaborate with different people who all have their own views.
They all have the same view of the data.
Exactly. And it's sort of translated automatically for you, right? So now you're not talking about end user and performance test, you're talking about the data. You're talking about what it means and how to analyze it. So, that's definitely going to be a big shift. Cool. And it's coming.
That's very cool.
Definitely coming.
Any big announcements this week that you know of that are exciting for your team? I know there's some stuff here happening at Perform.
Ruxit is a big one.
Yeah, do you guys even get to use that?
So I see those things all the time on Facebook.
Yeah.
Try Ruxit, try Ruxit. I'm like,
and some people might, as a brand name, some people might not even know that Ruxit is actually sort of, Dynatrace is actually connected.
I will withhold comment.
Yeah.
But Ruxit is Ruxit. Yeah. What I've seen of it and what I know of what's coming from that, it is a game changer. It really is. From an analytics perspective, I could see our whole product shifting, the Dynatrace brand, right, shifting into kind of what Ruxit is and what it can do for you, and its dynamic analytic capability is just off the shelf. I mean, that was a really bad metaphor.
Off the hook.
Off the hook, off the rack, off the charts. Off the something, off my head.
If you were Michael Jackson, it would be off the wall.
Off the wall?
Yeah, you're going to date ourselves there.
But don't make me moonwalk.
You get moonwalk in the Perf Bite shoes.
But for folks who know APM, Ruxit is going to it just changes so many things that you thought were truths about the difficulties of deployment.
Yeah.
The single probe idea where it's just one probe. It doesn't matter what you're monitoring, if it's web traffic or your web server or app server databases or MQ or whatever. One probe is going to do it all, and very pinpoint analytics, highly dynamic dashboarding. It's amazing. It really is amazing. I'm an old diagnostics guy.
Yeah.
So seeing where this is going, I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I remember the first time we sat with the performance guys in Seattle, outside of Seattle.
Reed Spencer.
Sitting down, we went through a whole demo before the acquisition, and he had like a single USB, plugged it in, probe running. I was like, holy cow, like all the engineers at Microsoft had not figured out how to do that at all.
It was quite a beast back then.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. Deep diagnostics, as it was called. Yeah, that and you had to set up experiments, and you would. Yeah, that was very involved process,
and it was heavy. Nowadays, these things are just super lightweight. Plus, we have more compute power to make it go. Right, we have a lot.
I think that's more likely the case. Is we have spare computing cycles that we can use for this analytics with less impact to the compute cycles that are required to actually deliver. So there's still a weight associated with these items.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever seen someone deploy anything that's got any sort of deep diagnostic capability and they turn on everything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like high performance speedboat. and a drag anchor behind
Right.
it.
You know, Andy was just telling us about somebody that had gone and put the actual instrumentation in the Log4j appender.
Oh yeah, that's just crazy.
Not just like Log4j to surface counting, you know, the aggregations, like on the appender itself. It was like, out of the box you can see logging overhead. You don't need to.
Let's instrument our getters and setters, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Exactly. Very nice. So, who else? Now, was this a positive experience doing an interview with us, Brian?
absolutely. I would do it again.
Now your job is to go name somebody else at Dynatrace, get them to come do an interview with us
Okay.
at the next break.
Sure can.
Now, do we give Brian a Perf Bytes stopwatch
I think so.
useful? I think so. So this is
my.
highly coveted, highly accurate, very lightweight.
Wow.
Stopwatch.
Accurate to 1/100th of a second.
I am honored. Thank you very much.
Yes, and it'll remind you to listen to the podcast Perf Bytes because it says it right on there.
Yep.
But you can tell your colleagues. Steve Filoni was confused. He's like, we were misleading people that you should use a stopwatch. Truthfully, the way to make sense of the stopwatch is now there's no excuse. So if somebody says, "Oh, I didn't measure that," I gave you a stopwatch.
That's
didn't
right.
I?
You should have.
See, now you can.
There you go.
You can
Yeah, one of my fondest memories of a project was walking into the room, the war room where everybody was, and there were stopwatches on the table. This was a bank, and this is like 3 years ago. So
Fantastic.
scary stuff.
Very cool. Well, we're just coming out of the break, Brian. Great to meet you in person.
Likewise.
Thank you
Yes.
very much for joining us on the chat.
And if you have any special announcements, say tomorrow or anything else, stop by, share them with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do.
Cool.
Thank you,
Brian.
guys. Appreciate
Sir.
it. Good to meet you.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in the next after the lunch break. Cool.
Yes.